came in from the right, just the way you came earlier today, and then basically everybody wanted to be met by a beautiful facade, and that's why in particular this side of the Old Town is built in a very pretty way. The further inland you go in the Old Town, the older the buildings become. So if you haven't done so already, if you've got time, I would strongly advise you to go for a little walk in the Old Town. It's really picturesque and really pretty and a great place to stop for a coffee or a little bite to eat. The man on the statue to your right side, his name is Gustav III, and he's one of many kings we have in about 1,000-year royal history. He's my favorite king. He is my favorite king because he's very often referred as the culture king. He was the king in the late 18th century, and at that time he traveled a lot to Paris and also to Italy, and he collected a lot of art. He was the man that kind of introduced ballet, opera and art, and so a lot of culture events into Sweden, and we didn't really know what that was before that time. And I really think, thanks to Gustav III, today Stockholm of course is a small capital city, but we are very culture aware. Today we're going to visit the Royal Opera. There are many other operas and ballets and theatres, and we have over 100 museums in Stockholm alone. So if you like culture or music or art, anything like that, you're definitely in the right city. And very much so thanks to Gustav III, the man up on the statue. When we're inside the Royal Opera, Roy, the tour guide inside the opera, will talk more about Gustav III, since he's very strongly connected with the opera itself. We're just going to do a small little loop up to show you some parts of the Old Town. We have the Royal Palace up to your right. Monarch in Europe. It's said to have 609 rooms, and it's said to believe one more room than Buckingham Palace in London. It is also the largest palace in use by a monarch. He decided in 1981 to move to a different palace, so he lives with Queen Sylvia inside a palace in the lake region, about 1 hour boat ride. They were creating a family in the early 1980s, and that's why they left the city, but they come here very often to work. We will also one of the oldest buildings in the inner city of Stockholm, dating from 1306. Built as a Catholic church, but it was later on rebuilt as a Lutheran church. So basically, the Cathedral of Stockholm, if you want to visit a statue inside the cathedral called St. George the Dragon, made by horsehair and elk antlers, it's a small fee to get inside a cathedral, and it might feel strange to pay to go to a church, but the reason being we've got so few residents. On this harbour on your right side, we see some of the steamboats. In fact, the boat closest to us is called a theatre boat, and I think it's just about to pull out. Stockholm's got the biggest steamboat fleet in the world, actually run by a timetable, and got the most old steamboats. Many of these steamboats that we can see are over 100 years old, and many of them cruise in the Stockholm archipelago. When you cruised in today, you might have seen many islands. Some people call it the most beautiful cruise to come into a capital city. And it's the Stockholm archipelago that these boats go out and do tours, some for a couple of hours and some go for a full day. The Stockholm archipelago consists of 30,000 islands and therefore is one of the largest archipelagos in the world. On your right side, we have the yellow building with many flags on top of the green roof, and this is the Grand Hotel, and it is the most exclusive hotel in Stockholm. They've got quite a few good restaurants in there, so if you do look for somewhere exclusive to eat, perhaps when you're staying in Stockholm, this could be one of your places. A couple of the restaurants in there got 1 Michelin star each. So we're just leaving the old town behind, and we will come over to the mainland and the city centre of Stockholm, and in just a few moments from now we will be let off and be greeted off the opera guide as we come to the main opera entrance. Benjamin, our driver, he will go and park elsewhere, so do bring everything you think you need inside for the opera. We'll be inside for about an hour and a half. You can, if you like, leave things on the bus as well, but just bear in mind that we will not be able to reach it until we come back roughly about 8 o'clock, so about 1 hour and 30 minutes from now. It's a little bit difficult parking outside the Royal Opera, so that's why you will let us off so we don't have to walk so far and pick us up roughly about the same spot, and then we park elsewhere. Do we have any?
So we're welcome. Oh, excuse me. We're welcome to the Royal Opera House. Have you just arrived? Just gonna keep track of you. Sometimes when I do guided tours, I suddenly have more people with me when I started. It's like people just sort of tag along. Okay, just a quick stop here. This is the worst place to stop because this is where everyone's going. Quick look around, inspired by the Paris Opera. And by the way, you're allowed to take pictures. And it's very much inspired by the Paris Opera because the architect really wants to do opera house. So he went to Paris to get inspiration. And certainly. So now, let's move this way. Go through the auditorium before the audience gets to sit down. There should be people more. funnily enough, the further down you go and the more you pay, the worse the acoustic is. And the simple reason for it is because there are more people down here. And everybody's clothes, of course, sucks up the acoustics. Whereas up there, it's more empty, so the sound will gather up there and be clearer. The big chandelier there has just been down, actually, and it weighs 2.4 tons, so it's a huge piece, of course. Also inspired by the Paris Opera. Maybe you've seen The Phantom of the Opera, the musical, right? That's a sort of model, right? You can set fire to it and swing it around and create that catastrophe. You could do, but that would be one show. What could be fun to see from here is the royal box, because the king at the time when they did this, he wasn't the slightest bit interested in opera and ballet, right? He couldn't hear. So his royal box is there, which are the worst seats in the whole house, because he wanted everyone in the auditorium to see him and his queen when he arrived in the opera house. When the show starts, they can see him on the side. It's really bad. And also, as you can hear, the percussion, the drums, the percussion, and the brass section is over on that side. So the royal families are here, they have the brass section and the drums underneath them. It's very, very bad. 1,160 people can fit in this auditorium, and you can see it from most places. We also have listening seats, which is right at the top up there. Some me time, you know, and they buy a cheap ticket for about, I don't know, $10 US. That's all you pay. This is right at the top to hear the piece rather than seeing it. It's interesting that people buy it to get away from the stressful life. Just to get time on the road. Not so magical side of things. So you can take a peek, you're not allowed to go in, so the set for no, we're gonna go down here this way, so I'm trying to make the most of it, because we're not allowed to go in, but since the door is here, yeah, 1 floor if you want to give us. But don't go any further. So this is the set, right? Which they told us not to go in. But it's easy.
We're not sure how far to go.
Oh, yeah. No worries.
Did you get the ballerina?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So should we go down?
Roy,
Yeah.
how far do we go down?
One sort of one circle, you know, next door.
Was that you?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah, and then you go through there.
Okay.
Yeah, down those little steps. So we are right under the stage, of course. So here, if you want to sort of navigate and have a feeling of where we are, I can open this door, which will lead into the orchestra pit. But the musicians are there, and they're of course a little nervous now, but I just open so you know where we are. So that would be the orchestra pit, and then we were just there on the stalls there.
No flash now.
Yeah, there's going to be about 90 musicians in town. Well, it's like cramming everything in once, you know. Oh wait, let's look this way so we can have a look. This is a big storage space. I'll just show you too, because this is the last time it will be empty. They have been renovating the stage the whole summer because there were water leaking in from the ceiling at the top of the house, and that's the last thing you want with all these electronics, of course, is water running down. So they've been mending it for about 2 months. And so they had to evacuate and empty the whole stage area. So the only production now running is the Sleeping Beauty. Tomorrow this will be filled with Sleeping Beauty. So what's wonderfully put up there now will be torn down tonight and put here, because Madame Butterfly by Puccini will come in tomorrow to be played at 3 o'clock. And then it will keep filling on, because this is every month it will change. So it's a big strain, of course, on an old opera house. Where do you put all the stuff that's not currently in production and so on? You can also lower the stage, which is the original design from 1898. So if you look, the empty space there is, of course, and it can be done in 12 different sections. So this is, of course, very appealing to use for directors and choreographers for dramatic reasons. It's also practical because you can set a stage set up here, right? Lower the stage, open the back, but also to keep the ticket prices down, because we are very spoiled when it comes to ticket prices. So the most expensive tickets here would be like $100. That would be the most expensive ticket, right? And $25 would be the cheapest tickets. If you go to Paris or London or anywhere else, you will find that they are much more expensive. And this is because the state sustenance. Yeah, so there we are. The lifting of the stage and lowering of the stage is actually original from 1898. So it was in fact the most modern opera house in the world. And that was the idea. So let's go on. Not so glamorous, of course. The evil. Do you know the story of the Sleeping Beauty? Called Aurora, right? The princess. Now people are here, gathered to bless the little child and to, give gifts and so on. But there's an evil fairy, of course. An evil, in this production, very dark evil, and wants revenge, and that's the person who puts the curse on the little baby, right? It says that when she turns 16, she's going to prick herself her finger, and the fairy will come up and down this way tonight. And of course, so they're going to open up here.
Wow.
And you can use various entrances too, of course. So yeah, that's what's going to happen here.
Oh, this is such a privilege, because we would never see all this otherwise.
No, there's no way you see this, of course. No.
Yes.
And it is, of course, a completely different thing here, of course. It's such a clash of
I live in London and I go to Leicester Square for, oh my God, I've never seen that. I know.
And as you can see now, this is brand new, right? Oh, don't lean on that. It was a 14-year-old girl. I don't know what you call it.
Practitioner.
Yeah. And she was told, she was watching stuff here, and she was told, don't touch anything, don't do anything, just stand still, do nothing, put your hands there during the show, right? Or the wrist. And a person told her, shut the door, please. Okay. And there was a button to shut the door, and right next to it was a fire alarm. It was so stupid, right? And she pushed a huge train coming down in the middle of the show, and it was a beautiful ballet called Cinderella. And of course the audience, what's happening? And the people on stage were also like, what's going on? Because there was no other alarm, it's just this thing coming down, and it's this poor girl, 14 years old, pushed her off button.
She was freaked out.
Yeah, told not to do anything, touch
Touch anything.
So yeah, this is brand new. No.
You tempted.
She did. Before that, it was really old and noisy, you know. And of course, when you lower people down, usually in the show, it's in the old operas, you know, when they go to burning hell or something, quiet or something loud. And it takes a while. So before they decided to change this, you know, they were sort of going like this. So they were trying to hide it somehow. But this performance, it stopped, and that's very bad because they were fiery. People who worked here for 30 years still. Yeah, you're here. So in 5 minutes time, they will all be in there. And the famous
Inte som när Anna och jag var på
sorry to drag you around. It's a very quick way of doing it. So it will start, so we will have the public area for ourselves. Have you seen music? Yeah, it's one of the big classics, of course, and the music. I'm sure you've seen the Walt Disney cartoon, right? It's the same music, of course. Disney used it. The conductor is a British guy, Ellis, and he kind of encourages kids to sing wrong. Because once it's called the flower waltz. It's quite a bit in the first act, and when that starts.
Ja, jag såg det i Artsvision.
Fjärde parkett.
Oh no.
Right, so we're getting back to the royal section of the house. It's very, very sour. This is the royal section of the house. It belongs to the palace. They have their own staff. They sort of manage these rooms, and this is their own staircase. It's gorgeous and beautiful. And the reason I'm showing it to you is because it's never used. Because in 1898, of course, it was important to the royal family. Mark the royal family. The The colors, this mix of green and gray, was chosen by the Queen at the time, Queen Sophia, for the reason that it should be calming for her nerves. She had panic attacks. They didn't know what that was in those days, but now they know that she had suffered from panic attacks. We must be a nightmare for the Queen, of course. So she said, I'm not going to go very much, but I'm going to come here and I will be met on calm, soothing colors. So that's why this is so green and gray. I don't know if you agree, it calms you down. But a lot of people who come here from various backgrounds say that yes, this is exactly the right colors to have around.
I think what trying to sell is a position angry and privilege.
Sorry?
Like you said, the status doesn't be used.
Well, it was used for 2 years. Yeah. So let's move on. Oh, this is mine here because it's of course very classic. Do you want to try it on? Legs and feet.
Okay.
Once it's on, because it blocks your view, right? And if you can't see your legs and feet at all, then it's very hard to judge where the floor is. And of course, when you're supposed to do fantastic technically, you know what's happening under here, of course, because you've been rehearsing, right? But still, to not see, it's quite annoying, it's tricky. And it came around about 1835, 1840 in Paris by a Swedish girl born here in Stockholm. Wore a tutu the first time, and also, of course, these ponchos that came along at the same time for aesthetic reasons. Not because they look good, but because I wanted to show it's about the leg. As a woman shouldn't show too much of their body. So this, and now her feet appear very big, because you saw two long lines, right? Two long legs, and her feet looked really silly being on flat floor. So they wanted a shoe where she could sort of move on point. Turned out the French king had already invented these, kind of invented them. He was fed up with being too short at parties, so he had kind of these shoes with heels, and they were hidden in his pants and his trouser legs. And he's supposed to try to walk around being a bit taller at parties. So when they saw this, they thought we could cut the heels off and use it for Marie Taglione. So they tried it. But it wasn't for dancing in. It was for prolonging the leg aesthetically, so it looked like two long lines. Right? And then, of course, the rest is history. But that's when the women took over the ballet world. Before that, it was a man's world. Men did ballet. Not
Like
because,
you have Shakespeare.
yeah, exactly. Not because the men were so much better, but because this is the Queen's room. Same colors, right? You recognize the colors? And she wanted these two to be able to hide away somewhere. It was too much action on stage. Which she got, of course. They didn't know why. They thought she was so strange and weird and romantic, but suffering from panic attacks must have been hell. But the present Queen, Sylvia, uses this, of course. She usually sits over here with her court ladies. It's all very traditional with the royal family, of course. And sometimes they can see the show, sometimes not, because it's the security police more or less who decides what's going to happen, right? So if the guards say that no, we prefer that you stay here, they might know something, so that if they need to leave quickly, they can take the staff with them. But if everything is calm, so it's all about, they decide. And this games table here is standing here since 1898. And the edges are up so that the dice won't fall on the ground, of course. Quite clever. Interesting in here is the open fireplace, because there's no chimney. You can't make a fire, because the king insisted on modern, right? And modern in 1898 and 1895 was electricity, of course. So they said, what are we going to heat the room with? With a radiator. So the radiator back there is the original one. And it still heats the room, which is pretty cool to have a 120-year-old resident.
Did you see this?
Foyer.
It's a lovely waterfall.
This down now, because those doors there is right into the royal box, and you saw that was right over the orchestra pit, right? So it's very easy that they will, I don't know if they can hear me over that orchestra. So this is the royal foyer. This is where they gather before the show, before they go through those doors, of course, to go into their terrible seats. But they have to use them. The king and queen has big fan. She's here all the time, not all the time. When she has opportunity, she comes here. Also during the daytime to watch rehearsals. She has a big interest in what's happening. You're not going to be in town for long, right? Or you're going to be here for a while? This is a park, north of 10 minutes from here. But the crowd is basically her family. Thank you. You there. You probably told that too. And that's what the architect wanted, a unity between these three buildings. But there's big discussions. People in Stockholm complain quite frequently about the fact it's hard to get ears, and the Royal Palace, they will mix pink into the brown. So we'll see how that turns out. I'm not sure what it's going to end up with. This brown business is a bit too much here for the palace and the part of the building. This was that kind of platform, but the way it was done in the 1800s. So that's why it's not square, it is rectangular, and the doors, two here, are at the ends, ready opposite out into the town. So, it's like a social platform, of course. And this worked. People came here, of course, walked up and down, and still do today. There are people who definitely walk up and down here in the center, and they like the attention from the sides. People talking, gossiping about them, what they wear, who they're with. But now, in 1898, mistresses. And it wasn't here. So the French architect said that we must prioritize the men in here, and the mistresses, and then the wives of these men stay outside. And now the Swedish architect said, no, I don't think I can go to Sweden and say that encourage men to bring their mistresses here. And sure enough, they said, no way. Of course, men have mistresses here too, especially in the upper class, right? But no. Everyone is welcome here. We can't say that the wives stay out because your men are here with mistresses. That happened. That's rumor and reputation. Perfect. Very good. You will find her if you're in theaters. Theaters in London. Yes. You will see her. She's portrayed everywhere in theaters. And she's the goddess. Her name is Siarra, the original word. So this has just been empty today. This was a bar and a restaurant, and it's been open from lunchtime till sort of after midnight, 1 o'clock in the evening. So of course, with this view in the summer evenings, it's a fantastic place. But it's just for you to get some air, of course. It's pretty bad air in there. and get a view of the old opera house, of course, on the opposite side. Palace, and yeah, the king at the time was so this room, they look after him for a while, carry him over to the palace, and in the palace he dies 2 weeks later from, the shooting, but mostly poor hygiene, because they put their dirty hands in his open wounds to stop the bleeding. And in the palace, it's quite cute, they wanted to drive the evil spirits out of him. So they opened every single window they could find right in March, which is really cold, of course. They call it pneumonia. So this is pretty much the story of the opera, and it's performed all over the world. So if you see Un ballo di maschera, or a masked ball or a masquerade by Verdi, the whole story is about killing the Swedish king in this house. To start, well, eventually, because when he was done with his story and this opera, he was so happy, of course, it was a true story, they just had to put start. I'll pass it on. Steps. chance that we can see a ballet studio, but I need to check just around the corner. So wait here for 10 seconds and I'll be back. Quick. And we need to sort of keep in the corner here because they're very particular about outdoor shoes. But it's an opportunity, of course, to show you. It's a very typical ballet studio. I don't know if any of you have done ballet. You have? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Oh. This is a classical ballet company. There are 78 dancers. They're all trained in the classical technique. It's an old company that was founded in 1773. And of course, they come from 27 different countries around the world because ballet is a silent art form, you know. So when they have auditions, they make announcements. When they need dancers, they make an announcement globally. So that people from all over the world, of course, can see, oh, Royal Swedish Ballet Company in Stockholm are wanting dancers. So when the new director came after the summer, he's from France, he said, I need 5 more dancers. So they made an advertising and 1,300 professional dancers replied and said, I can take that job. So, but it could be a long travel for about something that could be over in 1 minute. Because they start the ballet class, right? And the ballet master who runs the audition, he walks around and sort of eliminate people one by one, you know, until they have about 10, 15 left. The rest just have to go home. So that classical ballet is all about. You know, every single little finger on your hand has an exact position and it has to be tuned, of course, and synchronized with 40, 50 other people. So the mirror is essential. Right. Champagne. Have a seat if you like. This is where the Royal Opera House choir rehearses, and they are up to about 85. They can be, I think there are about 70 fully employed singers. And either they are acting in opera productions, of course, so this is the chance for them to actually sit down and plow through every single bar of these operas that are sung now in the original language. And of course, up to 1970, they translated every single opera to Czech or Hungarian opera, right, with Swedish text. So in 4 years' time, that will be taken away because the opera house is going to be closed, evacuated, and renovated for 4 long years. Outside, inside, everything.
Più amore e todo
Frenchism. This is from Donald Hahn. This is 17th century. So first is Chloris, to Chloris. This is my love. I want to love you. Really, this is, she loved me. Really, this is true. I love you. About this kind of song. And then next, Mon Amoure, the meaning is fall in love. Yeah. That is really fantastic. This is my favorite. Yeah. Okay.
Ask your manager. You can do also on the internet. Yeah, sure. We can have a little chat.
Night. Hey girls. Oh no, is it raining?
It's raining. It's raining.